Hey, we're back. Welcome into another edition of the Rice Football Blue and Gray preview show. Matthew Bartlett of The Roost, JP Heath of The Voice, as you hear on audio, visual, Twitter, everything. We're glad to be back with you. We will be here, rain or shine. We got Texas Southern to preview next game up, but first, it would be remiss of us to not kind of open things up and talk a little bit about the passing of Wayne Graham, a legend in the Rice community, what he did at Rice. So I want to take a moment and acknowledge all he did and the people he impacted around South Maine. It was more than just baseball.
Yeah. I mean, we could fill, I was joking with you before we started, we could fill the next couple hours, and there is work. So I'm trying to get something together for next week to pay more of a lengthy respect to a legend. There's probably no figure that has meant more and will mean more to Rice athletic success than Wayne Graham. To bottom line it there. I've gone on like broadcasts that you have taken part of when we have our Sunday Bartlett and Heath show. When you come in the 5th, sometimes also the 6th, and I'm sure you've caught some of the Wayne Graham talks. He taught me so much about baseball. He gave hope to an institution that really needed hope and showed what it could be. So, I mean, I'm effusive in the praise for, and maybe even on the national scope, I don't know if one coach has meant more to a program than Wayne Graham to Rice baseball. And you put it in context, definitely in Texas, maybe outside of Clem Haskins from what UTEP did, and UTEP won a national championship. And you could say Baylor for Scott Drew or what. I mean, it's a good fodder, but point be made, it's a very exclusive conversation about how one guy was so instrumental to putting a university on the map and perhaps saving it from not being in Division I. There's that storyline too, but it's a movie, it's a docuseries, the national championship alone, but just the whole scope of what he meant to Rice athletics and Rice University can never be understated. He was an icon, living legend, one of one. And I'll stop there because I could go on and on, Matthew, really free verse, just telling stories and people that I communicated with today and just reading so much. Legend, icon, one of one.
One of those guys where all the hyperbolic things, it's true. It's not like, oh, this one time. It's no. So is this possible? This is a challenge to you. We got a little bit more on the docket. Do you got a 60-second Wayne Graham story that either you think of today or one that you can tell on the air and we won't get in trouble from the bosses?
I'll make it easy. Yeah, there are a couple really good doozies, and everybody has their doozies, and most of those are public. But the first time I met him, I went down and, I mean, many conversations on air and off, obviously, and doing the coaches shows with him for 10 years. But just the first time I met him, how gracious he was. And I come here, for those that don't know the whole story, I applied to have Nate's job. And I joke with Nate. Thankfully, Nate got his job and I eventually got mine. Lord willing, what was meant to happen, happened. So I got the Rice baseball job first, and I'm here meeting this icon of icons, even at the time in 2009, obviously. And we go in and talk for 30 minutes, a preview of the team. And you'd have thought, that was the most nervous I've ever been, but you'd have thought I was the longtime broadcaster. Just he was relentless. Like, he was competitive. He wanted to win more than fans could imagine. They don't know how competitive he was. And just not just what he taught me about the game, but what do you really, truly want to do to win? There's this plaque. I forget the Sloan family. I apologize. I forget the first names, but on the Rice dugout, you may have seen if you've been in the Rice dugout, it's a Winston Churchill quote: "Never give in, never, never, never." And that was Coach Graham. Anybody that knew him, you knew him. Like, if you got to know Coach Graham, you knew him and his aura and his presence. And no one can ever match that ever again because he was the first. So yeah, that was like 3 minutes, but
No, that was pretty good, all things considered. I mean, it goes to show that when somebody's no longer here, that you can't not tell stories. That's kind of the man that he was. So we cannot say enough. Maybe this is a after hours extra Roost Pod or Rice Athletics Insider. We'll figure it out. I'm sure we'll have more Wayne Graham stories to come. There's no good way to transition from this, but because we don't all have all night and there is a game still happening this Saturday, we are going to transition now, talk a little bit about Texas Southern. We got Devin Wade, voice of the Tigers, coming in to help us talk a little bit of football and get us back in the swing of things. So I guess first off, Devin, how are things over on your side of the town, kicking things off, new head coach and a win?
Well, we're excited. And before I get into that, I do want to, we've had this discussion on KTSU Sports Talk about the Mount Rushmore of college coaches in the city of Houston. And I definitely think you can make a case, a strong case. You know, you got Guy Lewis and others that are on the Mount Rushmore of college coaches in the city of Houston. Wayne Graham is right up there. So I extend my sympathies to all of the Rice family on the loss, because again, he was so monumental for that program. He was a guy that the entire city could root for, for what he did in the sport that he did it in. I don't think that they would have got, he wouldn't have gotten the same love had it been a football coach, because the rivalries are so intense. But to do that in baseball, I think he was a guy, and he had teams that the entire city could rally around. And so sympathies are extended to you guys. But we're feeling great. We're coming off a win. Hey, 1-0 for the first time in a long time. So things are great right now under the new era, the Chris Dishman era at Texas Southern University. So that's exciting.
Tell us about Coach Dishman and just the new, I don't know, say aura or philosophies. What's he doing with his great defensive and local background, but what kind of mark has he made on the team so far?
Well, I mean, like most coaches, he preaches culture. He's coached on all levels. Obviously, my relationship with him goes back 30 years when he played for the Oilers. He, alongside Bubba McDowell, who he went up against last weekend, there are 3 former Houston Oilers that play defense at the same time that are coaches in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, with Eddie Robinson being the 3rd at Alabama State. And you add to that, Eddie George on the offensive side is a coach at Tennessee State. But he's come in and really he's about teaching. He talks about the little things. The little things are the things you have to concentrate. They create the big things. And so he's brought that in. They were relatively penalty free. They had 2 penalties. He wants to play clean, turnover free football. Didn't look so good on the opening drive because they did have a fumble, but the defense rallied deep in their own territory to keep it to a field goal. And I thought that was a key play in the game. But he's trying to play clean football. He's trying to teach. And also he's big on strength and conditioning. We have 2 strength and conditioning coaches. So he wants to be in shape, strong. And he understands that this is a marathon, a SWAC season, college football season is a marathon. You have to be in shape and you have to be strong and fast, bigger, faster, stronger. And that's what the culture seems to be at this point.
And I want to ask you a little bit about the players, because I know this is preseason. I feel like this is not uncommon, but taking a look at the Texas Southern depth chart, every single offensive position is an or. And the defense is more solidified, but where are we in that process? I knew new head coach, a handful of new players come in, and how solidified after a week do you kind of feel like the game plan is roster wise, and who's coming in and what kind of places?
Well, it looks like we certainly have found a quarterback based on one game. As much as one game can give you that, KJ Cooper comes in, is the starter, surprising a lot of people because Jace Wilson, who played against you guys last season, he was preseason second team all SWAC at quarterback. He did see the field after an injury to KJ Cooper, but I feel like we found our quarterback at least through one game. and a running back and Danny Green Jr., who had 83 yards rushing. Coach Dishman really wanted to get off running the football. He said he wanted to ground and pound. First 2 or 3 series, they couldn't get anything going on the ground until they put Danny Green in. And then that seemed to open things up, and they got going, and that made life easier, not only for the offensive line, but it also made things easy for KJ Cooper, and that opened up some things in the passing game.
What do you think the strength of the offense is? I know it's only one game, but the defense obviously did some stuff well. Is it still the same type of spread it out style? What do you think the offense does best when they're clicking?
Well, I think trying to run the football. I think that offensive line is something that they feel like they can count on. There is some experience there, but there's also a lot of support, a lot of help. One of the leaders on last year's team, Jack Nance, is around the team as a GA, and he still has a leadership position with those guys. I think that is where you start. And if you can run the football, you make life easier in the passing game. And so far, again, in one game, and of course, that'll be tested against Rice. It's a whole different beast that we'll be dealing with. But, yeah, I thought they got off to a really good start on that offensive front.
And then you talked about the importance of the defense kind of setting the tone early that game against Prairie View, holding to the field goal. What do you kind of seen from that side of the ball, and how do you like their prospects coming against an offense like Rice that'll try and attack you in so many different ways?
Well, what you hope if you're Texas Southern is you get off and maybe turn Rice over early and have them second guessing themselves after coming off of last week's performance. I think Jacob Williams is a guy at linebacker that will have a chance to play on Sundays. Javius Williams laid the wood on a couple players, and I thought that set the tone defensively because there were a lot of drops by Prairie View after he made a big hit or two. And I think that they want to be physical and aggressive. I don't know if you guys remember Dishman as a player, but he was a ball hawk. He was a talker. He was in your face. Under Jerry Glanville, initially, he was the guy that was he was the guy. He was the guy that you love to hate if you're the opponent. But I think the team, aside from the fact that he wants them to play clean, they have a lot of his traits defensively.
Yeah, I'd imagine you play for Coach Dishman, you're going to hit. So that was my next question. The secondary with E.J. Warner here, like trying to test that secondary. And even the safeties, like what's that look like? I know it's still again a game deep, but and what do they think? I mean, you imagine a secondary coach, he's going to have a talented secondary.
Well, I think with all secondaries, it's dependent on if you can get any pressure up front. If you can make some things happen up front, it makes life so much easier for the back end. If the quarterback has all day to throw, you can put Deion Sanders, a prime time DB back there in his prime, and you can't cover for that long. So I think the key to having secondary success is to get some sort of pressure. Now, whether that will come with a 4 or 5 man rush or blitzing, I don't know how they plan to do it, but they have to do it to have some sort of success, because you just can't expect. I mean, receivers on every level are so fast and so talented now. You just have to have help up front to have any kind of success as a secondary.
So what do you think if we gave Coach Dishman truth serum? We said, here's one thing that you think you have to do. We've rattled off 5 or 6 things they'd like. If there's one thing that Texas Southern has to do if they're going to come out the other side of Houston with an upset, what's the one thing?
In our conversations, I would think that his number one thing would be to run the football. Now, again, it goes along hand in hand with 1B, I guess. If that's 1A, 1B would be do not turn over the football. He's big on not beating yourself, not having the turnovers. But if you can run the football, that creates so much more help for a young quarterback in his second start. And so I think, that's a tall order. I'm not saying they're going to be able to, but if you can get 4 or 5 yards of carry, especially on first down, you stay on schedule or ahead of schedule. I mean, now you facing 3rd down and 3s, 3rd down and 4s. That's much more manageable. You have to stay out of 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. Those are just, that will kill you if you're an offense, and that's on any level.
What's the TSU mentality from the players, fans? You obviously have a great pulse of both sides of playing Rice. It's obviously an easy commute coming to Rice Stadium, where you came last year and a couple years before that. Just what's the mentality here from that side, from a crosstown rivalry like this?
Well, I think, again, for me, and you and I talked off air, but you love to see teams in the city play one another. It really is an opportunity to have a sense of community with other schools. We're not in the same conference, we're not in the same division, so we don't have that every year rivalry like you guys have with U of H. But I think it is important for the city to celebrate these things, and I think the TSU family is behind that. Obviously, there's a ton of excitement after a huge win for us. It really is a sea change for the culture of the program. So win, lose, or draw, I think the excitement around the program would remain if somehow they were able to come up with a win, or even a competitive game like in 2021, where Andrew Body had over 500 yards total offense. We put up 34 points in a 48-34 loss. I think if we can do something like that, that springboards us into having a lot more fan involvement and a lot more fan excitement moving forward with our season.
Well, thank you so much, Devin. We appreciate it, and see you very soon at the palatial estates that you've become very familiar with at Rice Stadium.
Looking forward to it, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. That's great. Devin, sorry about that. Devin Wade joining us here. Yeah, it can come blindfolded. This will be their 3rd time in 4 seasons coming here.
Yeah, 2021, and man, that he drew me back 2 different games that this team has played, Rice that is, against Texas Southern. And I guess the question that we face is, where is the 2024 Rice team going to fall on that spectrum? The team that had a track meet that was never really comfortable in 2021 against Texas Southern, or the team that just kind of rolled and took care of business, and it was never a close game, because these are 2 teams, respectfully, that, he said, are on 2 different divisions and 2 different levels of football. Where on the spectrum, if I gave you a chart, are we going to be, JP?
Short answer, I don't know, but
oh man, that was mine.
Yeah, can we talk after we've talked with Devin? Can we reset, because my answer depends on the team we're seeing. Like, Devin and I meant to get to this too. I don't think he'd mind me saying it, but is TCU? That'd be another story too. Is TSU getting Rice at the wrong time, because Rice is going to be extra motivated? Not only the game 1 to game 2 improvement, but there was a lot of improvement that needs to be made after what happened Saturday against Sam Houston. I think that deserves some touching, because like you heard, there was some very pointed and specific comments from Coach Bloomgren about, hey, there's no leadership here. He was talking about the O-line. We've got to do better. I need to coach him better. He told us on the broadcast about that. So, yeah, he was very pointed about that loss, and they're taking that one as the most serious I've seen them take after any loss. So they're going to be really tuned in coming up Saturday.
Yeah, I think the comment he made on leadership was really interesting, because it's a football team. Like, you got leaders. Yeah, but last year's team on offense, you had JT Daniels, Luke McCaffrey, and Clay Servin, who I believe tied the all-time starts record or broke it in the bowl game. Was pretty close. So, like, you're talking like 3 of the like larger than life, like big guys that this program have seen in recent memory all of them are gone. And so it's not that this team doesn't have leaders and on offense, but you're literally like, you're resetting the board because all the guys who were the first man up to give the speech in the huddle are gone. So it's who's going to give that speech now. And I think what we learned Saturday is they're still kind of feeling each other out and what that looks like. EJ is, we've chatted with him. He's not a big brash in your face guy. He's a little bit more, cool kid Joe or what, some expression. I'm going to try and use words, but he's more, mellow and kind of even keel. He's not going to be the one that stands up and, starts using words that we can't use on the podcast. But I don't know. I think that's going to be interesting because as they figure that out, when they get punched in the mouth, who's going to answer? If they don't figure out that question, then I don't know what we're supposed to do for the next 10 weeks. Like, is that too dire? And I'm not trying to just say, let's quit, but I'm just saying they got some fundamental identity things to figure out before we talk about X's and O's.
100%. I think they'll be as locked in as they've been in any game with Coach Bloomgren. And they've had some great responses. You remember some other disappointing losses. I need to break that down before Saturday. So
no, I have it for you. You ready?
Okay.
You ready?
That's
because
virtual hug. Yeah.
I'm here for you because I had the same conversations you did. Man, this was the worst one since. Oh, what about, and it felt like every year this program has just had that one game where for whatever reason, it just didn't click. It wasn't they just got upset or they got beat, but it was just nope, this is not the team we saw the other 11 games. Something's not right. Every year they've had this game. So in 2023, that was UConn. Double-digit favorites against UConn, fell behind 20-3, 20-7 early and just snowballed. Next week, this is what I think is interesting. The week after that, they spanked Tulsa 42-10 on national TV. Okay. 2022. They got throttled by Charlotte. They 3 days after Charlotte had fired their head coach, Will Healy. The next week, they beat UTEP, which that win helped them get to bowl eligibility and go to the postseason. 2021, they got shut out 45-0 by UTSA. The very next week, they went on the road and upset UAB 30-24, the top team in the conference at that time. And you're like, that's crazy. There's more. You go back to 2020, and that was the COVID year. Rice went to North Texas, and they played a North Texas team that was missing half of their offensive starters and most of their defensive starters because of COVID. A game you shouldn't lose. The very next week, shut out Marshall, number 15 Marshall, 20-0 on the road. It is uncanny how every year, I would love this not to be the case. This team just has an oops, a really embarrassing brain fart. But the good thing is we now have 4 years of data is they might be the best team at flushing an oops in the country, which they need to be at least one more time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that speaks to the character, paraphrasing part of your end there. I asked Coach Bloomgren about that. I said, hey, in the past, I didn't cite those specific games you did, but Monday night, I'll go back and watch the archives. We have the video and the audio. You can find it. And essentially, he said, hey, it's the type of guys they are, the character they are. We all know, we're around them every week and during camp. And we've seen all the snaps. We know that this is a team with high fortitude, and this is a staff that has poured into them. That loss on Saturday was as shocking to them as it was to us and to the fan base. So dang sure it's in the locker room. They're angry after that one. We talked about it on the broadcast, so I don't mind sharing it here again. We have this neat gizmo that Walter, our engineer extraordinaire, can hook up, and we talk to the guys, post game while you're doing your writing stuff, Matthew. Some of us are also working for a living, and we could hear what's being said in the locker room, and certain assistant coaches, certain players, things that should not be repeated. They were mad. Okay. They were mad and they were getting after it. So just know anybody out there wondering about how that was a big poke in the eye. Yeah. That was a big stinker for them and they didn't like it. Does that matter come Saturday? Not as much. It matters what you do and how you respond. And then after that, you don't worry about the Bayou Bucking. You worry about now against TSU, and that is the whole season right now. And I think they're really going to come out dialed in.
Yeah, and I will say, quick aside from the folks I've talked to and just the attitude around the program this week, something I thought that was really interesting was there was I felt, especially with the Owl Walk and the expectations for the season and the connection that they had with the fans, there was really a concerted focus that this team kind of felt embarrassed, but they were sorry that they put the fans through this. This is one of the few times that I can think of covering this team that they're like, yeah, we're mad that we're lost. We're mad because we know we're better than this, but we're also upset because the fans deserve better than this. And I got a lot of that around the program this week of like, show up again, please. Like, keep coming. Like, we're going to get it right. Directing the messages to the fan base, which I thought was something that, I don't know. I don't know if that same intensity and yearning would be there if they didn't believe that they had this, that they could turn this around. If they just thought like, man, I don't know, maybe they wouldn't be begging people to come back, but they want everybody to come back because I feel like, yeah, they do have something to prove. That starts against Texas Southern. I went through, and if you read through my preview and for anybody who has on the site, my keys to win this game, I made it very plain and simple: block somebody. And every week we're like, it's about us. It's not about them. Like, legitimately this week, like, if Rice can just figure out the offensive line, it's going to be okay. Like, they got a lot of things to work on. Like, it was not one thing that sank them against Sam Houston. There was a lot of things. But, man, if they can figure out the offensive line, they can get 5 hats on hats, run the football, protect EJ, who we haven't talked about him yet. I thought he looked really good last week against Sam Houston when he had even half a second to breathe. So that's what I want to see this week. Do you got a key to the game, something that this team needs to make sure they do other than just focus?
I'd flip it on the other side. I'd say do better first down defense. I didn't see the numbers. You're Mr. Number Cruncher, but I mean, my goodness, I turned to Nate middle of the third. I said, how many of second down and 4s have we seen? Or how many times have they gained 5, 6, 7 yards on first down? And that's something that Charlie Lewis singled out to me. I think I specifically asked him the question, so that's why I singled it out, I guess, when I talked to him earlier in the week.
Well done.
What an impact he made, by the way. And the juggler, encourage folks to go see his juggling routine. I put him on the spot juggling on the Mike Bloomgren show Monday night. He's a hoot, but he's a mean dude. And he made his impact known very early on. And he said to me, again, on the record, this isn't me just shooting from the hip, as you know, old shooting from the hip JP does all the time. That's what I'm known for, right? He said, we took them for granted. Like, we weren't, he said we took Sam Houston for granted. And I was like, wow, that speaks to the candid nature and the owning of what happened, and that they hopefully learned the lesson that won't happen again coming up Saturday. So I say all that to say, got to do better on first down. It's much easier for an offense if you're looking at 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4 than 2nd and 8.
Well, and I'll add to that, the chunk plays that they just kill you, man. And went and looked this up. There are 14 teams in the American Conference now. I have to recount about every week because I forget, all these numbers keep changing on me. So 14th is dead last in the conference, and whatever you're looking at, Rice was 13th in plays allowed of 10 yards or more in their opening game. only North Texas was worse. The difference is North Texas scored like 48 points at South Alabama. So Rice did not get 48. So you don't get to allow that many explosive plays on defense. So yeah, that was the biggest thing is like, man, I feel like for a good chunk of it, there was a good amount of positive defensive plays. I've never seen a team get 7 sacks and lose by 20. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen that. So like there was a bunch of good defense, but it doesn't matter if 1 out of your 3 swings is a 10-yard quarterback scramble or an 8-yard run by the running back on first down or lacks coverage and you give up a 9-yard hook. Just like, well, if you're giving those chunk plays, like that'll kill you, man. And I think they've learned from it. I hope they have. They certainly have the film to look at. I'll say that. I can't make any proclamations of what we're going to see on Saturday, but they can't ask for much more things in your face to deal with. Is that fair?
100%. They look dialed in. I got to catch the back half of practice on Monday. Plan to go out there for what day is it? Carry the 7. Yeah, Thursday, tomorrow. And they're dialed in. Like they're ready. They're foaming at the mouth. And can't wait. Highest respect for TSU, like great Devin just talked about a few minutes ago, the close game that was a few years ago. There is no business. There is no position or no reason that they should be overlooking anybody right now. And Nate and I talked about in our post game when we do our peek ahead like this, but much more just off the cuff. And we're just kind of 2 dudes talking. And he's like, hey, you better know, because he's buddies with Chris Dishman. He's known him since his Oilers days. And he said they will be ready and they will hit you. So they got to be ready to get hit in the mouth coming up on Saturday, and then do it back. It's gonna be a physical game.
Blood in the water. Like if you're Texas Southern, this is you got what you see. This is an opponent that looked pretty formidable a week ago, and hey, they got a weakness. Like you put it on film, everybody's seen it, so you got to back it up. Nobody is unaware of what's going on Saturday. So. I'll tell you what, I'm grateful to get there. I will say this, a plug for everybody who stick with us this long, launched a Discord this off season on Patreon with a bunch of subscribers, bunch of Rice fans. Go find us on socials and hit that up. I got to watch it with a bunch of Rice faithfuls and we had a live chat going back and forth, and man, it was a good experience to have people to do it with. Let me just say that you just had Nate. You were stuck with the 2 of you. Just bring in some more people to have that communal hug. It was really great. So I'd go plug that. We'll have practice notes. I'll be out there with you, JP. Tomorrow, talk to some folks, see what's going on. Things go on, man. Game by game, 1 game at a time, rain or shine, as Mike Bloomgren likes to say. The sun did come out. And well, I don't know if it's going to. It's a little bit overcast this afternoon. So sun or no sun, we'll be back. We'll be back next week to talk a little bit Texas Southern and preview maybe the second to last Bayou Bucket ever.
The team across town, yeah.
Yeah,
we'll
get to that.
Can I be devil's advocate? Can we ask the sun not to come out? Because I kind of like this weather we've got. I can't explain all the meteorological things, but I kind of like the low cloud cover and a little bit of sprinkles. I don't want any flooding, obviously, but I kind of like highs of 86.
I could go with that. And I'm good for I will say a shout out to the Rice Facilities group, the drone show. For anybody that wasn't at the game on Saturday, that was awesome. Needs a little bit later in the fall, get a little bit darker, but A+, thumbs up.
It caught me. Shows I don't pay attention to the memos. I was like, wow, what's this? And I was just looking all the bright lights, like, wow, Nate, you see this? And we're talking about it like a couple of hillbillies, but look,
it was fun for us too. Yeah, there you go. Blue.
Rice fight never dies. That's what it said. So anyway,
yeah,
we've gone on long enough. The only thing I'll tease is next week, obviously the broadcast and our in-booth feeds, but I am trying to couple to my dog's making some noise. Okay. I'm trying to get get a show together honoring Coach Graham. I'm going to try to get some guests and do a stream like this, honoring the greatness of the late Wayne Graham. Now, sounds weird. So weird to even say that. That's the first time I've said it. It's a weird thing to say now, but that'll be next week. And then we'll have the Bayou Bucket preview there.
That'll be good. I wonder if we could match, even if you get enough guests to keep the stories going on and on. I don't think you will be able to outshare the stories for how much time you have on the air, which is probably a good thing. I'll be tuning into that. I thank you guys, everyone and gals, everyone for tuning into us this week. Thanks for coming back. Honored to have you guys. Good to talk about Coach Graham for a little bit. We'll be back next week. Here we'll preview Houston, and life marches on, man. The game marches on. We have more things, more reasons to hopefully make us smile, maybe even a little bit sun. That's all we got this week. JP Heath, Rice Owl's voice, Matthew Bartlett of the Roost. Thank you for sticking with us. Rice Fight.
Never dies, baby. Never dies.